Hello and welcome to Fashion with Red Velvet. In today's tutorial, we'll be learning how to draft a basic shirt block. This tutorial is going to really be simplified because it's for beginners. You learn how to draft this and you'll be amazed at the end of the day what you can do. The measurements you'll be needing is a vertical measurement, which is the shoulder line, shoulder to bust, chest line, your crop or waistline, and your full length. And the horizontal measurements you'll be needing for this tutorial is your shoulder measurement, your bust round, your waist round, and your hip round. Let's get started. Let's start drafting. The first thing you will do is to place your tape from the top of your pattern paper, mark ½ inch. If you notice, in most cases we used to mark down ½ inch. This will serve as either a shoulder line or in the skate it serves as a waistline. Then after marking down the ½ inch, you connect the lines together using your ruler. Using a straight ruler, you connect the lines together. The next thing you'll be doing, you place your tape from the edge, the center front of your pattern paper. You mark down 4 inches. Why do we mark 4 inches? The 4 inches is for your button stand and your buttonhole. If you notice on the shirt, in the front of the shirt, you will be seeing two. It's slashed through, it's separated, and on both sides we have one for the button fixed there and one is for the buttonhole. So that is what the 4 inches is for. So the next thing we'll be doing is to mark our shoulder measurement from that button line from the center front of the pattern paper. The next thing we'll be doing is to mark our shoulder to bust line, and after that we'll be marking our shoulder to our waistline or our crop. It's either you call it waistline or half length or crop. Then the next thing, you mark your shoulder to your chest line. This is very important because that's where you'll be placing your bust round measurement. As you can see, I have marked shoulder to bust line, and in this tutorial we are using 8 inches for the shoulder to the chest line. The next thing I'll be marking is the shoulder to the full length plus 2 inches for hem allowance. I'm using 27 inches for the full length and I've added 2 inches, that's 29 inches. Then you remark the measurements on a point where you'll be able to connect them together. That's what I'm doing now. I have marked the 8 inches for the chest line. That's very important. I've marked my shoulder to bust, shoulder to crop or half length, my full length, and the 2 inches for hem allowance. The next thing we'll be doing is to connect with a straight ruler. We'll be connecting the lines together. Always remember to connect your lines in such a way that they are very straight, so you'll be able to have a good pattern at the end of the day. Let's connect the lines. I've connected the chest line. I'm now connecting the shoulder to bust line. I'll be connecting my shoulder to my crop line and my shoulder to the full length. These are the vertical measurements. So the next thing we are doing is to draw the lines on the full length, and you also connect your lines on the hem line. Remember, we added 2 inches for your hemming allowance, so you should always add either 1 inch as the case may be or 2 inches. You always remember to add. The next thing we'll be doing is to mark our neck width and your neck depth. The neck width I used here is 2.5 inches and the neck depth I used 2 inches because I don't want my shirt to be too open, the neckline to be too open. Most cases you use 2 inches for the depth and 2.5 for the width to avoid it being too open. The next thing we are going to do, you mark down 1 inch from where your shoulder stops, your shoulder divided by 2, where you mark to your shoulder measurement. Mark down 1 inch for the shoulder slope. Remember that our shoulders are not straight as humans, so that is why in most cases we always slope our shoulder, and with the sloping we will use 1 inch for the slope. After marking, you connect it back to the shoulder neck width. The next thing, you will square your shoulder line Why? Because that is where we are going to mark out our armhole. So you bring down the 8 inches you marked on your shoulder line. That's, in my own case, it was 8 inches because the shoulder was 16. You bring it down, you mark it on the chest line, the same 8 I used, you mark it on the chest line and connect the line back to the shoulder slope. So the next thing I'm marking is I'm placing my bust measurement divided by 4. You place it on the chest line, then you add the seam allowance, but in this video I'm adding 3 inches because I want the shade to really be free. So if I'm sewing, I'll be sewing with 1 inch and the remaining 2 inches will be added to my body measurement. So the next thing will be marking our waist measurement, our waist round measurement divided by 4. You mark it on the waistline plus your seam allowance. Mine is 3 inches. The next thing, you go to your full length, that's the hemline. You mark your hip round measurement divided by 4. Then you add your seam allowance. Always remember to add your seam allowance in every case, in everything. Remember to add it because that's what you'll be using to sew. So the next thing, we are going to connect all the lines together. You place your ruler and connect all the points, all those points you marked, just connect them together. Draw them together. After connecting the main measurements, you also connect on the seam allowance we added. Always remember to add seam allowance. They are very, very important because if you don't add it, by the time you sew, the clothes will not be your size or your client size and you have to dash it out. So it's better you add them to your measurements. So the next thing we'll be doing is to mark our armholes. If you followed carefully, you will see your pattern will be looking like that. So you mark our armhole. Please, while marking your armhole, just use a curved ruler. And if you're really good with freehand, there's no problem, but I used a curved ruler in this case. I placed the ruler from the shoulder slope, then it passed through the armhole, that straight line, then it did not rest. If you watch closely, you will notice that the armhole cup did not rest on the chest line. I purposely took it up like 1 inch up, so I think you should do same, because if it should rest on the shoulder and the chest line, it's going to make your armhole too big. It's always better your armhole is small after sewing, then you can now cut it to the men's size than it being too big. If it's too big, it's going to be a problem. So the next thing, I'm adding ½ inch to my shoulder line. The ½ inch is for sewing your seam allowance, so I'm adding it to the top, as you can see. Then I'll use a ruler to connect it. I'm connecting it now, so I think you should do same. You connect both sides on the shoulder slope side and on your neckline side. Just follow the video carefully, do exactly what you are seeing, and your pattern will come out very well. So the next thing we'll be doing is to cut out our pattern. Please watch closely. The cutting part is very important, because if you don't cut on the lines you are supposed to cut on, your pattern will be messed up. You will spoil your pattern. So just watch exactly where I'm cutting and do same. So we've come to an end for the front shirt block. The next thing we'll be drafting is the back shirt block. So after cutting, you have to get another paper to draft the back shirt block. The next thing we'll be doing is to mark ½ inch from the center front of your pattern, your fresh pattern paper. Mark out ½ inch inwards. That ½ inch serves as a guide where you'll be placing your front block. as you can see. And after that, you connect with a straight ruler. You connect the lines you marked with a straight ruler, like so. So after connecting those lines, the next thing we'll be doing is to mark 2 inches from the top of our pattern paper downwards. You mark 2 inches from the top of your pattern paper, mark down 2 inches. And after marking the 2 inches, you use a straight ruler and connect the points you marked together, like so. So the next thing I'll be doing is to fold my 4-inch. Remember, we added 4 inches to the center front of our front shade block. You fold in that 4 inch. That 4 inches we added, fold it in. So after folding it, you'll be placing it just like your zipper allowance. You fold it in so you can achieve your back block. So that's what I just did now. You fold it in. After folding it in, you keep the pattern one side, then you mark on the top of that your back pattern paper. You mark 2.5 inches like we did for the front as the neck width, and you mark 1 inch as your neck depth. 1 inch because it's the back neck depth. Mostly we use 1 inch, and in this shirt case we are going to use 1 inch because we don't want the back to be too deep. If you notice, most shirts the backs are always on top of the neck. So after doing that, you place your front shade block on your back shade block, your back pattern paper, aligning the lines. The place you folded the 4 inch in, make sure it aligns with the first 1 inch line that you drew from the center, as in from the center of the pattern paper. That 1 inch line we drew, like so, as you can see. You make sure it aligns. Then you also align the shoulder slope line to the 2 inches line that we drew on the back pattern paper. Remember, we drew 2 inches from the top down. You make sure it aligns like so. So the next thing you do, you also mark the shoulder line. Mark your shoulder line like your normal shoulder measurement, like so, on the back. Then you also slope, you mark your shoulder slope by 1 inch, like so. Just watch the video closely so you understand what I just did there. You slope it like how you sloped in the back video block. You slope it to the neck width, like so. Then after that, you draw a line that will connect from that point to the front shoulder. You can see I used a masking tape to hold it down, so you do the same. You can see I used the masking tape to hold it down so that the paper will not be shifting. Just follow it closely and you have it correct. Then the next thing I'll be doing is to cut out. I'm cutting out the back neckline first, and after cutting that out, I'm cutting out the back slope, the back neck shoulder slope. I'm cutting it out now. Then I'm cutting on the hemline side. Remember, if you are cutting, you cut through that allowance you added, like so. You cut it all through your seam allowance side. You cut your armhole, cut out your armhole. Always remember to cut on the point you need to cut out. Always watch closely so you will not end up cutting your main pattern. So at the end of the day, this is what our front and back shirt block looks like. Thank you so much for watching. The sewing tutorial of this video will be dropped soon. Remember to like, to share and to subscribe for new videos. Remember to subscribe. Follow us on Instagram and on Facebook as displayed on the screen, and you can drop your messages on our WhatsApp number as displayed.